The entropy engine hung in space like a wound in reality itself, a writhing mass of darkness that hurt to perceive directly. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Starbound, watching through filtered displays as the thing that could end the universe slowly pulled itself into their dimension. Around the engine, space itself was wrong. Stars flickered and died as their energy was drained away. Planets crumbled to dust as the forces holding their atoms together weakened and failed. The very laws of physics seemed to bend and break in the presence of something that predated the current universe. "Fleet status report," Jake requested, his voice steady despite the cosmic horror filling their view screen. Lieutenant Sophie Grant checked her displays. 437 human ships in position, sir. 62 Zephyrian vessels providing technical support. All crews report ready for operation. Dr. Lisa Carter monitored the consciousness amplification systems that had been installed throughout the fleet. Neural enhancement fields are stable. All human crew members are showing elevated resistance patterns to entropy effects. The plan they had developed was desperate and unprecedented. Traditional weapons would only feed more energy to the entropy engine, making it stronger. Instead, they would use human consciousness itself as a weapon, amplifying the natural chaos and emotional turbulence of human minds until it created a form of reality anchor that the engine could not consume. Agent Zale's voice came through the communication system from his ship. "Captain Morrison, our sensors indicate the engine will complete its emergence in approximately 1 hour. After that point, it will be too powerful for any force to challenge." Jake opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Morrison. You all know what we're facing. This thing has destroyed entire galaxies. It's older than our sun and more powerful than anything we've ever encountered. But it has one weakness it doesn't know about." He paused, looking around at his crew. Dr. Kevin Walsh stood at his science station, monitoring the quantum effects of human brain activity. Commander Alex Brooks managed defensive systems while Engineer Tony Harris kept their enhanced engines running. Communications Officer Claire Davis coordinated with ships across the fleet. It feeds on order, on logical systems that it can predict and consume. But human minds don't work that way. We're chaotic, emotional, stubborn, and absolutely unpredictable. When we refuse to give up, when we fight for something we believe in, we create patterns that entropy cannot touch. Throughout the fleet, similar scenes played out on hundreds of bridges. Captain Ben Torres spoke to his crew aboard the Explorer. Captain Nicole Webb prepared her people on the horizon. Captain Gary Stone readied the Defender for a battle unlike any in history. The first phase began when the engine noticed their presence. Void hunter ships poured out of the darkness around it, but these were different from the scouts humanity had fought before. These creatures were fully merged with entropy itself, their biomechanical hulls shifting between dimensions as they moved. "Incoming hostile vessels," reported Lieutenant Commander Ryan Phillips from the Starbound's tactical station. "Multiple contacts, but they're not showing up consistently on sensors." The battle began with humanity's enemies trying to use their standard draining attacks. Energy beams that should have shut down ship systems harmlessly dispersed against human vessels. The consciousness-draining effects that could kill most species in seconds barely affected human crews at all. Dr. Amanda Price, working in the medical bay, reported something unprecedented. "Captain, the crew members who are most resistant to the entropy effects are the ones experiencing the strongest emotions: fear, anger, love, determination. They're all creating quantum interference patterns." Jake made a decision that violated every principle of military strategy he had ever learned. "All ships, stop fighting defensively. I want every human crew member to focus on what they're fighting for. Think about home, about the people you want to protect, about why this matters." The effect was immediate and dramatic. As human crews throughout the fleet concentrated on their emotional connections to life and hope, the quantum signatures of their thoughts began to resonate together. The chaotic patterns of human consciousness started forming a collective field that actively pushed back against the entropy effect surrounding the engine. Captain Torres made the crucial breakthrough when his ship came under direct attack from the engine itself. "All ships, listen to this. When it tried to drain our reality anchor, I could feel it recoiling. Human emotion isn't just resistant to entropy. It actually causes entropy pain." Dr. Carter confirmed the discovery from her sensor readings. The engine's quantum signature is fluctuating. Human consciousness is creating interference patterns it can't process or absorb. The second phase of the battle began when Jake ordered the fleet to advance directly toward the entropy engine. Every principle of tactics said this was suicide, but human tactics had never been designed to fight cosmic entities that existed outside normal reality. As the ships moved closer, the effects of concentrated human consciousness became more pronounced. The engine's reality warping field began to weaken and stabilize, stars that had been flickering back to life. Space itself seemed to remember how to behave according to proper physical laws. Dr. Nathan Green and Dr. Amy Foster, working aboard different ships, made simultaneous discoveries about the quantum effects they were generating. Captain Morrison, human consciousness isn't just creating anchor points. We're actually generating new reality structures. We're making space-time more stable just by thinking about it. The engine responded by unleashing its full power against the human fleet. This was the moment when countless ancient civilizations had fallen, when reality itself crumbled under the assault of primordial chaos. But instead of collapsing, the human crews grew more determined. Engineer Jake Miller aboard the Defender reported something that changed the nature of the battle. "Sir, when the engine hit us with its maximum entropy beam, our crew started singing. Not orders, not planning, they just started singing together. And it's working. The beam is actually bouncing off us." Communications specialist Samantha Bell confirmed similar reports from across the fleet. Ships throughout the formation are reporting spontaneous group activities. Singing, shared memories, collective determination. The more unified their emotional response, the stronger their resistance becomes. The third phase began when the engine realized it was facing something it had never encountered before. Prey that became stronger under attack. In desperation, it began to manifest physically in normal space, its massive form taking shape as a crystalline structure that seemed to contain the collapse of entire universes. Lieutenant Commander Derek Young, commanding a support vessel, made the observation that turned the tide. "All ships, look at your quantum readings. The engine isn't just big, it's hollow. All that power, all that cosmic horror, and at its center there's nothing but emptiness." Jake understood immediately. It's not creating entropy, it's running from something. It's afraid of what happens when order and consciousness work together. Major Patricia Cruz, aboard one of the military vessels, confirmed the tactical assessment. "Sir, every time we focus our thoughts together, the engine retreats slightly. It's not trying to destroy us anymore, it's trying to get away from us." The final phase began with the simplest and most human response possible. As the engine prepared to flee back into the void between galaxies, the combined human fleet whispered. Not words of power or ancient incantations, but simple human thoughts spoken in unison. "We are here." The whisper carried across space on quantum frequencies that only human consciousness could generate. Engineer Bobby Clark, communications specialist Diana White, and thousands of other crew members throughout the fleet added their voices to the collective statement of existence. "We matter." The engine convulsed as the whisper grew stronger, carrying with it the emotional weight of every human who had ever loved, hoped, struggled, or refused to surrender to despair. "We will not fade quietly into the dark." The whisper became a roar that resonated across dimensional barriers. The engine, faced with a force that embodied everything it sought to destroy, began to collapse in on itself. For the first time in eons, entropy encountered something that could not be consumed. The stubborn human insistence that consciousness and hope were more fundamental than chaos and emptiness. The ancient horror fled back into the void, its power broken by something as simple as human beings refusing to accept that their universe was meaningless. The void hunters scattered as their master abandoned them, leaving behind only empty space where moments before cosmic annihilation had seemed certain. In the aftermath, Elder Vorthak of the Zephyrian Council transmitted a message that would be remembered throughout galactic history. "We searched the stars for strength and found it in those we deemed weakest. We sought wisdom among the ancient and found it in those we called primitive. Today we learn that sometimes the smallest voice can command the attention of eternity itself." Admiral Jake Morrison, promoted in recognition of humanity's service to the galaxy, established the Human Defense Initiative to ensure that never again would cosmic horror threaten inhabited worlds while humans lived to stand against it. The coded transmission reached Captain Jake Morrison while the Starbound was docked at Refuge Station Alpha, the makeshift facility where human ships had been bringing alien survivors from Void Hunter attacks. The message appeared on his personal console, encrypted in patterns that no human technology had created. Captain Morrison, this is Agent Zale representing parties interested in your recent activities. We request immediate private communication. Jake stared at the message for several minutes before calling Dr. Lisa Carter to his ready room. Lisa had become his closest advisor during the refugee crisis, her scientific background helping him understand the alien technology and biology they encountered daily. What do you make of this? Jake asked, showing her the encrypted message. Lisa studied the communication patterns with growing excitement. Jake, this encryption is incredibly advanced. Whoever sent this has technology that makes our best systems look like stone tools. The question is whether they're friendly or hostile. Only one way to find out, Lisa replied. Jake activated his communication system and transmitted a simple response. We're listening. The reply came within seconds, but not through the ship's communication array. Instead, Agent Zale appeared as a hologram in Jake's ready room, tall and silver-skinned with ancient eyes that seemed to hold the weight of centuries. Captain Morrison, Dr. Carter, I represent the Zephyrian Observation Council. We have been monitoring human activities for several decades. Jake felt his anger rising. You've been spying on us. Yes, Zale replied without apology. We have observed your species since first contact, trying to determine if humanity could be trusted with advanced technology and galactic citizenship. And your conclusion? Lisa asked. Our initial assessment was negative. Human history showed patterns of violence and aggression that concerned us. However, recent events have forced us to reconsider. The hologram gestured, and suddenly the room filled with images of human rescue operations across the galaxy. Jake saw the explorer pulling survivors from a burning space station. He watched the horizon defending a refugee convoy against Void Hunter attack ships. Dozens of human vessels appeared in the display, all risking everything to save alien civilians. We have never observed behavior like this, Zale admitted. Species typically prioritize their own survival above all else. Humans consistently choose to protect others, even at great personal cost. Dr. Carter leaned forward. What do you know about the Void Hunters? Zale's expression grew grave. More than we wish. They appeared in our galaxy over 4,000 years ago, consuming entire civilizations before we learned to resist them. We thought they had been driven back permanently, but we were wrong. The hologram showed new images, these ones filling Jake and Lisa with dread. Massive dark shapes moved between the stars, each one larger than a moon. At the center of the formation was something that hurt to look at directly, a writhing mass of darkness that seemed to bend space around itself. The entropy engine, Zale explained, the source of the Void Hunters' power and their ultimate master. It feeds on the collapse of ordered systems, growing stronger as it reduces matter and energy to primordial chaos. How do you fight something like that? Jake asked. Traditional weapons are useless. Energy attacks feed it power. Physical projectiles simply cease to exist in its presence. We have spent millennia searching for a way to combat it effectively. Lisa studied the technical data that accompanied Zale's presentation. But you think humans might be different somehow. Your species possesses unique neural patterns that naturally resist Void Hunter feeding techniques. More importantly, human consciousness seems to operate on principles that actively oppose entropy. Zale explained that Zephyrian scientists had been studying human thought patterns since first contact. Most alien species thought in highly organized, logical progressions that made their minds vulnerable to the draining effects of entropy-based attacks. Human minds were different, filled with emotional contradictions, creative chaos, and stubborn refusal to accept impossible situations. We propose a joint operation, Zale continued. Zephyrian technology combined with human resistance capabilities. We will provide you with enhanced weapons and defensive systems. In return, you help us fight the entropy engine before it can establish itself in our galaxy. Jake looked at Lisa, who nodded slightly. What aren't you telling us? The window of opportunity is very small, Zale admitted. The engine is still emerging from the void between galaxies. It is vulnerable during this transition period, but only for a few more days. After that, it will be too powerful for any conventional force to challenge. Dr. Kevin Walsh joined the meeting via communication link from the Starbound's laboratory, where he had been working with refugee scientists from several alien species. Captain, I've been analyzing the data we collected from Void Hunter attack sites. The energy signatures are growing stronger and more organized. Whatever is controlling them is definitely getting closer. Agent Zale confirmed Kevin's analysis. The entropy engine draws power from each world the Void Hunters consume. Every civilization that falls makes it stronger. If we cannot stop it now, it will soon be unstoppable. The next 12 hours transformed human space into a hub of unprecedented activity. Zephyrian technical teams arrived aboard ships that seemed to exist only partially in normal space, their hulls shifting between dimensions. Engineers like Tony Harris in communications, specialists like Claire Davis worked alongside alien technicians to install advanced systems in human vessels. Dr. Nathan Green and Dr. Amy Foster led teams that integrated Zephyrian consciousness amplification technology with human ships. The alien equipment was designed to boost the natural entropy resistance of human minds, turning each crew member into a living weapon against the forces of chaos. Captain Ben Torres coordinated the technical upgrades aboard the WE Explorer, while Captain Nicole Webb managed logistics for the growing human Zephyrian fleet. Captain Gary Stone worked with alien tacticians to develop battle strategies for fighting an enemy that existed partially outside normal spacetime. The most crucial development came from Dr. Carter's medical research. Working with Zephyrian biologists, she discovered that human emotional responses actually generated a form of energy that disrupted entropy fields. Love, hope, determination, and especially the human refusal to give up in hopeless situations created quantum effects that could damage reality-consuming entities. We're not just naturally resistant to their attacks, Lisa explained to the assembled fleet commanders. Human consciousness actively opposes the fundamental forces they represent. When we refuse to surrender, we're literally fighting entropy itself. Lieutenant Sophie Grant made another important discovery while testing the new communication systems. The enhanced arrays are picking up something incredible. There are human ships throughout the galaxy, all heading toward the same coordinates, ships we've never heard of, crews who received the same information we did. Jake studied the tactical display showing hundreds of human vessels converging on the emergence point of the entropy engine. Some were military ships, others were exploration vessels like his own. Many were civilian craft that had been pressed into service as rescue ships during the Void Hunter crisis. They're all volunteers, Sophie continued. No government orders, no military commands. They're coming because they know what's at stake. Agent Zale observed this with what might have been amazement on his alien features. In our experience, species require extensive coordination and command structures to mount operations of this scale. Humans seem to be organizing spontaneously through some form of collective instinct. The final piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected source. Dr. Chris Parker, working aboard Captain Torres's ship, had been studying the quantum effects of human consciousness under stress. His readings showed that human minds under extreme pressure generated what he called reality anchors and quantum signatures that literally held space-time together in the presence of entropy effects. It's like we're evolution's answer to cosmic horror, Chris reported. Our chaotic, emotional, absolutely stubborn way of thinking makes us natural enemies of anything that tries to unmake reality. As the human Zephyrian fleet prepared for departure, Jake received one final message from Admiral Kane on Earth. The Admiral had been monitoring the situation and had reached his own conclusions about humanity's role in galactic affairs. Captain Morrison, you and your people are no longer following human military protocol. You're operating under a higher authority now. Do whatever it takes to protect this galaxy. Earth stands behind you. The combined fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying the hopes of billions of beings toward a confrontation that would determine whether consciousness and order could stand against primordial chaos. In the void between galaxies, something ancient and hungry waited for them, confident that it would soon feast on the collapse of another reality. But for the first time in eons, the entropy engine would face opponents whose very existence was a challenge to everything it represented. The emergency broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy at once, cutting through normal communications like a knife through silk. Admiral Kane sat in his command center on Earth, watching as star maps turned red system by system. Each red dot represented a world that had gone silent in the past 72 hours. How many? He asked his aide, Colonel Janet Ross. 47 systems confirmed lost, sir. Another 112 not responding to calls. Kane studied the tactical display with growing dread. The pattern was clear now. Something was moving through space in a spiral pattern, consuming everything in its path. The attacks were not random raids but a systematic harvesting that moved steadily toward the core worlds. Captain Jake Morrison received the Admiral's orders through emergency channels. All human vessels were to return to Earth immediately. No exceptions, no delays, no heroics. Humanity's small fleet was needed to defend their home system. Jake looked at his crew on the bridge of the Starbound. They had spent the past 3 days rescuing survivors from Outer Rim facilities, filling their cargo bays with refugees from 6 different species. Dr. Lisa Carter was treating alien civilians in their makeshift medical bay while Dr. Kevin Walsh helped coordinate refugee housing. New orders, sir? Asked Commander Alex Brooks. Return to Earth, Jake said quietly. All human ships are being recalled. Lieutenant Sophie Grant looked up from her communications station where she had been coordinating with other rescue ships. Sir, we're still receiving distress calls from the Centauri sector. The refugee ships there are under attack. Jake made a decision that would echo through galactic history. Signal all human vessels in this region. Form up on our position. Sir, Alex said carefully. Those orders were very specific. No exceptions. The orders assume we're following standard military protocol, Jake replied. But this isn't a military situation. This is a rescue operation. Within 6 hours, 17 human ships had gathered in the Centauri sector. Captain Ben Torres brought the Explorer with its cargo holds full of Zephyrian civilians. Captain Nicole Webb arrived with the Horizon, carrying rescued scientists from 3 different worlds. Captain Gary Stone commanded the Defender, which had taken aboard an entire kindergarten class of young Altarian refugees. The human fleet was small compared to the massive Galactic Council armadas, but it was highly mobile and completely unpredictable. While alien governments debated response strategies and requested permission from various authorities, human ships simply went where help was needed most. Dr. Kevin Walsh made a crucial discovery while studying the biosignatures they had collected from Void Hunter attack sites. Working with data shared by Dr. Chris Parker from the Explorer and Dr. Helen Ross from the Horizon, he found something that changed everything. The creatures aren't just draining life energy, Kevin explained to the assembled captains during a fleet-wide conference call. They're specifically targeting consciousness itself. The more complex and organized a mind is, the easier it is for them to feed. Captain Torres leaned forward on his bridge. That explains why the advanced alien civilizations are falling so quickly. Their highly organized thought patterns make them perfect targets. But humans are different, added Dr. Carter from the Starbound's medical bay. Our minds are chaotic, emotional, unpredictable. We don't think in the neat logical patterns that most alien species use. Captain Webb, who had been studying tactical reports from across the galaxy, made the connection that everyone else had missed. That's why human ships can operate in areas where these things are active. Our crews aren't as vulnerable to the draining effect. The revelation came just in time. Long-range sensors detected a massive energy signature moving toward the Centauri refugee camps. The Void Hunter fleet was approaching, and this time it wasn't a small scouting force. Hundreds of biomechanical ships emerged from hyperspace, their dark hulls seeming to absorb light itself. Captain Morrison took command of the human response. All ships, defensive pattern Alpha. Protect the refugee vessels at all costs. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The Void Hunters attacked with weapons that drained power from ship systems and consciousness from crew members. Alien vessels that tried to help found their crews collapsing at their stations within minutes of contact. But the human ships kept fighting. When Void Hunter energy beams tried to drain power from the Starbound's engines, Engineer Tony Harris managed to reroute systems and keep them running. When alien crew members on refugee ships began falling unconscious, human medics like Dr. Amanda Price moved through the ships providing aid. The humans discovered that their natural resistance to the draining effect wasn't just mental, but somehow physical as well. Human crew members could work in close proximity to Void Hunter ships for hours without showing signs of the rapid aging that affected other species. Captain Stone made the most dramatic discovery during the height of the battle. When Void Hunters boarded his ship, he found that direct contact with human consciousness actually seemed to hurt them. They can't handle our thoughts, he reported over the comm system. Human mental patterns cause them pain. The tide of battle turned when Captain Morrison made a desperate decision. Rather than fighting defensively, he ordered all human ships to charge directly at the Void Hunter fleet. The alien predators, accustomed to prey that weakened and collapsed under their assault, found themselves facing opponents who grew more determined the longer the fight continued. Dr. Lisa Carter, working frantically in the Starbound's medical bay, made observations that would prove crucial for everything that followed. "The creatures are afraid," she reported. "For the first time in what must be millions of years, they've encountered something they can't simply consume." The Void Hunter fleet retreated after losing nearly a third of their ships. It was the first time in recorded history that the ancient predators had withdrawn from a feeding ground. The refugee ships were saved, and the survivors included representatives from dozens of alien species who had witnessed human courage firsthand. News of the battle spread through galactic communication networks faster than hyperspace travel. In the Zephyrian council chambers, Elder Vorthak faced unprecedented pressure from younger council members who demanded immediate action. "The humans have proven themselves beyond any doubt," declared Councillor Lyrath. "They risk their lives for strangers who have shown them nothing but contempt. More than that," added Councillor Nexus, "they possess a natural defense against the Void Hunters that we lack. Our minds, for all their sophistication, are vulnerable to the draining effect. Human consciousness is chaotic enough to resist it." Elder Vorthak had reached the same conclusion, though it pained his ancient pride to admit it. The Zephyrians had spent thousands of years developing mental disciplines to resist Void Hunter attacks. Humans accomplished the same thing simply by being human, but the victory in the Centauri sector was only the beginning. Deep space observatories detected something that made even the elder races tremble with fear. The Void Hunter retreat had been strategic, not desperate. They were gathering their full strength for an assault on something far more dangerous than any individual world or fleet. The entropy engine was stirring in the dark between galaxies, responding to the call of its servants. Soon it would emerge from the void, bringing with it the power to unmake reality itself. The Void Hunters had been merely scouts for something that threatened not just civilization, but the very existence of matter and energy. The humans had won their first battle against cosmic horror, but they had also attracted the attention of something that could end the universe itself. The stars trembled as ancient evil prepared to wake from its eternal sleep. The Kepler research station hung in space like a dead thing, its lights dark and its communications silent. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Starbound, studying the facility through the main viewer. Something was wrong. Everything about the station looked normal from the outside, but no one answered their calls. "Life support is active," reported Dr. Kevin Walsh from his science station. "Atmosphere is stable, gravity is working, but I'm not detecting any life signs." Lieutenant Sophie Grant tried another communication attempt. "Kepler Station, this is the exploration vessel Starbound responding to your distress call. Please respond." Only silence answered her. Dr. Lisa Carter ran detailed scans of the facility. "The station is completely intact. No signs of battle damage, no hull breaches, no system failures. It's like everyone just vanished." Commander Alex Brooks checked his tactical display for the third time. "No other ships in the area. No debris fields. Whatever happened here, it didn't involve conventional weapons." Jake made the decision that his training said was wrong, but his conscience said was right. "Prepare an away team. We're going aboard." "Sir," Alex said carefully, "standard protocol requires us to report this to the Galactic Council and wait for instructions." "The Council doesn't want our reports," Jake replied. "They've made that clear. Besides, people might still be alive in there." The away team consisted of Jake, Lisa, Kevin, and Lieutenant Commander Ryan Phillips, the ship's security chief. They suited up in the shuttle bay, checking their equipment twice. Ryan was a careful man who had served in Earth's last military conflicts before humanity reached for the stars. He knew danger when he felt it, and he felt it now. The docking bay of Kepler Station accepted their shuttle without any problems. Automated systems guided them to a berth and sealed the airlock behind them. When they stepped through the hatch, they found themselves in a facility that should have been bustling with activity, but was instead filled with an eerie quiet. "Atmosphere is breathable," Kevin reported, checking his scanner. "Temperature normal, no toxic substances detected." They made their way through corridors that showed no signs of struggle. Personal items sat exactly where they had been left. Coffee cups remained on tables, still half full. Computer terminals displayed ongoing work projects that had been abandoned mid-task. It's like they all just stopped what they were doing and walked away. Lisa said quietly. They reached the main laboratory where Dr. Amanda Price had been working on her project to study dark matter interactions. Amanda's notes were scattered across her workstation, and her equipment was still running experiments that no one was there to monitor. "Look at this," Kevin said, pointing to a data display. "This experiment has been running for 3 days straight. Amanda would never leave it unattended for that long." Ryan found the station's security office and accessed the surveillance recordings. What he saw made his blood run cold. "Captain, you need to see this." They gathered around the security monitor as Ryan played back footage from 3 days earlier. The recording showed the normal daily routine of the research station. Scientists worked at their stations, technicians maintained equipment, administrators handled paperwork. Everything looked completely normal until 1427 station time. At that moment, without any warning or visible cause, people began to collapse. Not all at once, but in waves throughout the facility. They didn't fall as if they had been shot or poisoned. Instead, they seemed to simply lose all strength, sinking to the floor as if something essential had been drained from their bodies. "My God," Lisa whispered.
"What could cause that?"
The recording continued, showing the fallen people growing smaller and grayer as if they were aging decades in minutes. Within an hour, nothing remained but empty clothes and personal effects scattered across the floors. "This is impossible," Kevin said, his voice shaking. "Nothing in known science can cause rapid cellular deterioration like this." Ryan found more security footage from the station's external cameras. At the same time the people inside began collapsing, the sensors had detected movement in the space around the station. Dark shapes that didn't reflect light properly had moved past the cameras too quickly for clear images. "Shadow ships," Jake said grimly, "or something that doesn't want to be seen clearly." They spent 2 more hours documenting everything they could find. Amanda's research notes mentioned strange readings in dark matter fields during the weeks before the incident. Other scientists had reported equipment malfunctions and sensor anomalies that they couldn't explain. Dr. Tony Harris, the station's chief engineer, had left detailed logs about power fluctuations that seemed to come from outside the station. Communications officer Claire Davis had recorded attempts to contact other facilities in the region, but many had already stopped responding to calls. This wasn't random, Lisa concluded as they prepared to return to the Starbound. Whatever happened here, it's been happening to other places too. Back on their ship, the crew worked through the night analyzing the data they had collected. The evidence painted a terrifying picture. Across the Outer Rim territories, research stations and small colonies had been going silent one by one. The pattern was spreading inward toward the more populated systems. Kevin made a breakthrough while studying the molecular residue left behind at the collapsed sites. "These readings are unlike anything in our databases. The atomic structure shows signs of energy extraction at the quantum level." "English, please," Ryan said tiredly. "Something drained the life force from these people. Not their blood, not their organs, but something more fundamental. It's like their souls were pulled out of their bodies." Sophie received another priority message from Galactic Council headquarters. The message was brief and cold. "Human vessels are ordered to withdraw from all Outer Rim territories immediately. Galactic Council forces will handle the investigation." Jake read the message and deleted it, just as he had deleted all the others. "They don't want our help investigating, but they also don't seem to be doing much investigating themselves." Unknown to the human crew, their every action was being recorded by hidden Zephyrian observation equipment. In his concealed monitoring station, Elder Vorthak watched the Starbound's crew work with growing interest. "They show remarkable dedication to discovering the truth," observed Counselor. "Nexus, even when faced with something that clearly terrifies them. More importantly," Vorthak replied, "they remain calm and analytical under extreme stress. Most species we have observed would have fled after finding the first empty station. The Zephyrian Elder had lived long enough to recognize the signs they were seeing. Thousands of years ago, his own people had faced a similar threat. Entire Zephyrian colonies had vanished overnight, leaving behind only empty structures and the lingering sense of something terrible having passed through. That ancient enemy had been driven back into the void between galaxies, but it had never been truly defeated. The Zephyrians had spent millennia preparing for its eventual return, building defenses and training their minds to resist the life-draining effects of the creatures they called Void Hunters. Now the hunters had returned, and they were stronger than before. The Galactic Council's advanced civilizations were proving just as vulnerable as primitive worlds. Their sophisticated minds and complex thoughts made them easier targets for creatures that fed on consciousness itself. But the humans were different. Their scans of human neural patterns had revealed something unexpected. Human thoughts were chaotic and unpredictable, filled with contradictions and emotional turbulence that seemed to interfere with the Void Hunter's feeding mechanisms. Perhaps, Vorthak said quietly, we have been evaluating humanity by the wrong standards. 3 systems away, Captain Ben Torres of the human vessel Explorer was making similar discoveries at another abandoned facility. Captain Nicole Webb was investigating a silent colony world where empty cities stood beneath alien suns. Across human space, ship after ship was disobeying Galactic Council orders to withdraw, driven by their inability to ignore calls for help. The Void Hunters had expected easy prey in the populated regions of the galaxy. Instead, they found their feeding grounds patrolled by strange ships crewed by beings whose minds seemed naturally resistant to the draining touch that had conquered 1,000 worlds. For the first time in eons, the ancient predators encountered something they had never faced before: prey that refused to be prey. The red light blinked on Captain Jake Morrison's console, and he knew what it meant before the message even came through. Another rejection from the Galactic Council. The same words appeared on his screen that had appeared 57 times before. Polite but cold like winter rain on metal. Humanity remains unsuitable for galactic citizenship due to primitive social structures and violent tendencies. Jake stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it with a quick swipe. Around him, the bridge of the exploration vessel Starbound hummed with quiet activity. His crew worked at their stations, pretending they hadn't seen the familiar look of disappointment cross their captain's face. Dr. Lisa Carter looked up from her science station, where she had been studying mineral samples from the planet below. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her brown eyes held the same frustration that Jake felt. She had been part of the first human delegation to meet the Zephyrians 3 years ago. The advanced alien race had seemed impressed by human curiosity and drive. But that impression had faded quickly when they learned about Earth's history of wars and conflicts. Same response? Lisa asked quietly. Jake nodded and stood up from his command chair. Same as always. We're too violent, too unpredictable, too primitive. Dr. Kevin Walsh, who worked alongside Lisa in the ship's laboratory, shook his head as he overheard. Kevin was a tall man with graying hair who had spent his whole career hoping to make contact with alien life. When first contact finally happened, he thought it would open doors for humanity. Instead, those doors had remained firmly shut. It doesn't make sense, Kevin said, walking over to join them. We've been peaceful in all our interactions. We've shared our knowledge freely. We've offered trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Lieutenant Sophie Grant turned from her communications console. The young officer had joined the crew straight from the Space Academy, full of dreams about humanity joining a vast galactic community. Those dreams had been slowly crushed by years of rejection and dismissal from alien civilizations. Maybe they're right, Sophie said quietly. Maybe we are too violent. Our history is full of wars and fighting. Commander Alex Brooks, who managed the ship's defensive systems, frowned at this comment. Alex was a career military officer who had seen combat during the last conflicts on Earth before humanity unified under the Global Space Initiative. He knew about violence, but he also knew about sacrifice and protecting others. Every species has a history of conflict, Alex said firmly. That's how life grows and learns. What matters is what we choose to do now. Jake walked to the large viewport that showed the blue and green planets spinning slowly below them. This was their 5th survey mission in 2 months, carefully documenting worlds and life forms while staying far away from inhabited systems. The Galactic Council had made it clear that humans were allowed to explore empty space, but contact with other civilizations was forbidden until they proved themselves worthy. The irony, Jake said, is that they won't let us prove ourselves because they think we can't prove ourselves. Lisa joined him at the viewport. Below them, the planet teemed with complex plant life and simple animals. It was beautiful and peaceful, exactly the kind of world that humans would love to study and protect. But according to the galactic community, humans couldn't be trusted with such responsibilities. Captain, Sophie called from her station, we're receiving a broad-spectrum distress call. Multiple sources, different frequencies. Jake turned quickly. From the planet? No, sir, from deep space. The signals are coming from the outer rim systems. Kevin moved to his sensor station and began running analysis. The call patterns are strange. They cut off abruptly like the transmissions were interrupted. Alex checked his tactical displays. I'm not reading any ships in this area. Whatever's sending those signals is too far away for us to detect directly. Jake made a decision that would later prove more important than anyone could imagine. Plot a course for the source of those signals. Best possible speed. Sir, Alex said carefully, we don't have authorization to investigate alien distress calls. The Council specifically forbids human interference in galactic affairs. The Council also says we're too primitive to be useful. Jake replied, but if someone needs help, we're going to help them. That's what humans do. The Starbound's engines powered up and the ship began its journey toward the unknown signals. None of the crew knew that their every move was being watched by advanced sensors hidden throughout the region. The Zephyrians had been observing human behavior for decades, cataloging their actions and responses to different situations. In a cloaked observation post 3 light-years away, Elder Vorthak of the Zephyrian Council studied the data streaming in from the Starbound. The ancient alien had lived for over 800 years and had seen dozens of species rise and fall. His silver-blue skin reflected the light from multiple displays showing human activity across known space. Interesting, Vorthak murmured to his aide, a younger Zephyrian named Counselor Nexus. They received the distress signals just as we did, and they are responding, Nexus observed, despite having no obligation to do so. Despite being explicitly forbidden to do so, Vorthak corrected. The question is whether this represents admirable compassion or dangerous recklessness. On dozens of screens, they watched other human ships across the galaxy. Each crew had received similar distress calls, and each was making the same choice as Captain Morrison. They were abandoning their assigned missions and heading toward unknown dangers to help strangers who had never shown them kindness. Perhaps, Nexus suggested quietly, we have been asking the wrong questions about humanity. Vorthak said nothing, but his ancient eyes remained fixed on the displays. Something was moving in the dark spaces between stars, something that had not stirred for thousands of years. The distress calls were not random signals, but warnings of an approaching threat that even the Zephyrians had begun to fear. Deep in the void, ancient hunger stirred. The Void Hunters had detected the growing chatter of galactic communications after eons of silence. Slowly, deliberately, they began to move toward the light of inhabited worlds, drawn by the life energy that sustained billions of thinking beings. The first colonies had already fallen, their populations drained of life force in moments. But the Void Hunters were patient predators. They would take their time, feeding on world after world, growing stronger with each conquest until nothing remained but empty space and drifting hulks. Captain Morrison and his crew raced through hyperspace toward signals that had already gone silent, unaware that they were flying toward humanity's first real test. The Galactic Council had spent decades questioning whether humans deserved a place among the stars. Soon, the stars themselves would discover what humans were truly capable of when others needed protection.